It's learning the lessons that these hardships are teaching you. And then, hopefully those things that that suffering that you do when you're doing these really hard things, that gives you the confidence, the courage, the capacity to do harder things in life. So
one, and here we are. So, well, first of all, endlessly grateful that you've agreed. Thanks a lot for doing it. I have seen you've had quite a lot appearances, I believe, on TV. It must have been, right? And what about podcasts, may I ask?
I'm in the probably 450 podcast range. Interviews.
Do you run your own?
I have started my own. It's called Navy SEAL Mindset.
Oh, nice.
And I think episode number 10 has just dropped this weekend.
Okay,
this past weekend.
Nice.
So I'm nice. New in starting my own podcast, but I'm 10 episodes in right now.
Awesome. I feel like it is necessary for me to pay my dues to our common friend Mario, who has kindly agreed to connect me to you. So it's exclusively him that we are doing it. So thanks, Mario. So how do you go? How do you go about selecting guests for your podcast? Is it people from your environment, or do you reach out online?
You know what? I haven't had any guests on yet. It's all just me on there talking, kind of building my own personal brand, sharing my thoughts about, the Navy SEAL mindset, about leadership, about life, about experiences that I've had. And just sharing those. They're anywhere from like 10 to 22 minutes, I think, is the longest one I've done. And I think probably when I get to number 50 or so, just me being comfortable talking to the camera, which is not an easy thing to do. I don't do it naturally. Then I'll start having guests on. So I'm working on building myself up, and then I'll start bringing some guests.
It's interesting because as you're talking about it, I thought that I actually started, obviously by no means comparing myself to you, but I actually somehow naturally started the other way. Like I started by having guests because it felt to me a bit kind of easier to share that with somebody. At least I'm not alone in this trouble. And then it took me actually a bit of courage to go live with single episodes. So that's interesting how some people.
It's really the hardest thing, I think, talking to that camera. And I cheat a little. I guess I cheat. I don't really cheat, but I like looking at myself when I'm doing the episode.
Interesting. Okay, good. Well, listen, I will, if you don't mind, announce your accolades. I will list all your titles, and I have shamefully stolen it from your Instagram, but I bet for listeners and viewers that would make sense, and correct me if I'm wrong. So first and foremost, a Navy SEAL, right? Business advisor, leadership coach, and international speaker. I bet there are a couple of more. What else would you call yourself?
There's probably some other things in there. I have I do like sort of men's personal development. I work with two different organizations, one called The Project, the Modern Day Night Project, and the other one is called Man Made, where I am, where we take men out and we kind of break them down physically, mentally, and emotionally, and then help build them back up. Really helping men become men again.
Right.
I think really is the simple way to do it. And I think
so does it
society wants us to be weak and insignificant. And our job is as men, is to provide and protect and be the leaders in the world. And, there's a lot of society that doesn't want that. They want us to be mediocre and weak. And
does it happen in some way of a camp, perhaps, where you gather all those men and you put them through training, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So we have a couple different programs. Again, the project is a very expensive, like it's an $18,000 program where you get it's first of all, it's like a week of kind of like a camp where we really run you through some really hard things and then start building you up at the end. And then there's like a 12 months of coaching on the backside of that. And then Man Made, it's a little bit different where we'll go out and we'll also do some really hard stuff but it's more of a gentleman's course. Does it mean that it's not any easier? It's just a different approach. So maybe we'll do some stuff where we just work out back and forth and then go have some classes, then go work out again and do some more classes and work out again. Or we're going to go, in a week, I'm going to go hike the Grand Canyon for the second time this year. So
Okay.
it's 54 miles. It's about 20,000 feet of elevation gain and loss,
Right.
up and down and up and down. We
Yeah.
did this earlier this year, and we actually saved a kid's life. We happened to show up. He would have died of hypothermia had we not shown up.
Wow.
And we
Was
saved
lost.
his life. And now he's going to go back and he's going to hike it again with us next week.
That's amazing. You know, that's truly inspiring. How do you go about any physical maybe criteria for those that apply? Is there any requirements to be met when you apply to those camps?
Yeah, I mean, we give you workout regimens depending on which program you join,
Yeah.
and we give you the tools to be in good enough shape to show up and do the event.
Okay.
You know, the events are going to be very hard. You're going to feel like that you're not prepared.
Okay.
And you know, when I climbed did the Grand Canyon this last in the spring, I will tell you it was probably the top 5 hardest things I've ever done. And, you know, I'm out there doing it with other guys that are joining the program. And, you know, when we, you know, with the project, it's, you know, the initial like camp is 75 hours of you don't get very much sleep. You're doing very, very hard activities the entire time. You know, we're yelling at you. We're, you know, motivating you. We're trying to break you down. We don't sleep during that process really either. You know, I think I probably slept like 6 hours the entire week.
Wow.
Not very healthy, but you know,
yeah.
Again, we're making the sacrifice there with
Sometimes it's not about healthy,
going through it,
right? It's about legendary, right?
Right.
Yeah. Are you a proponent of balance? Because I'm getting a hinge that you not right at times.
Well, if you think about balance, what does balance look like on a scale? If you have 2 things and they're balanced, what's the sum gain? 0, right?
Oh,
if you have balance, you have 0. So work life, it's an exchange. It's not a balance. So I may work really hard over here and spend less time with family or whatever so that I can spend more time with them later. So the balance isn't like, oh, I'm going to work this much time to get this much time over here. I want to create you know, a legacy. I want to impact more people's lives. Everything costs something. What are you willing to pay? And I have to be willing to pay, you know, my time, my effort. You know, there are sacrifices that happen with family and things like that. But I have to go in knowing that is part of the cost. And my family has to know that too. They have to be willing to accept those costs along the way. But for them, you know, there's other freedoms, there's other things that they get out of it on the backside.
Right.
So it's not all bad. It's not all like sacrifice. Not all sacrifice is bad.
Yeah. Sure, obviously. Would you, considering what you've been doing with these camps, with preparation, training those men, how would you rate men's willingness currently, more in modern men, to challenge themselves? Would you say that objectively, overall, right now, the men's ability to push themselves is in the decline or incline? How would you say? I
think it's in decline right now.
Decline, yeah. And what would be the cause of that?
I think that we are looking for, we as society, as people, as human beings, we are looking for the easy path, the easy road, instant gratification. You know, I talked to a guy earlier today that was thinking about joining one of these programs, and he was like, but what do I get out of it at the end? It's not about what you get out of it at the end of like 75 hours or going and, you know, hiking 54 miles and being broken down and having to build yourself back up, or learning the lessons that these hardships are teaching you. And then, you know, hopefully those things that that suffering that you do when you're doing these really hard things, that gives you the confidence, the courage, the capacity to do harder things in life. So I spoke at an event 2 weeks ago in California. And, you know, I met a girl at that event, and she is going out and she's doing really hard things herself. Her husband has a brain tumor. He was supposed to die 4 years ago. He's still going. She knows he's going to die one day. She doesn't know what day, but she's preparing herself physically, mentally, and emotionally by going out and doing really hard events, challenging herself, pushing herself further than she thought she could be pushed, because she knows that one day in the near future, she doesn't know when, her husband's going to die. So she's been given both the gift and the curse of time. The gift is she gets to prepare herself as best she can for that hardship that she's going to face. The curse is they don't know when it's going to happen. They know it will happen. They just don't know when. You know, it'd be great if they were like, okay, you got 6 weeks to live, and then, you know, they could prepare that 6 weeks for that end. Well, it's 4 years later. And so she's just preparing herself. And I think we as society, it's in our DNA to take the easy road. You know, we used to be hunter gatherers, and you would think that we would all these men would we would all gear up for our hunting party and go out and hunt saber-toothed tigers or elephants or woolly mammoths, whatever it was back in the day. But if we came across and we would do that when we got hungry enough. And right now I don't think we're hungry enough.
Yes.
So we'll roll up on like a beehive and look at all this honey. We'll just stop and we'll eat all that honey because we got the instant gratification from it. Right. We should have saved the honey, gone and killed an animal, brought it back, and then had more at the end of the day. But we don't do that. We go and we eat the honey. We find the beehive and we're like, all right, we're good enough. And then we're starving when that fuel from that honey goes away, our bellies hurt or whatever. And then we're hungry again. And so we still have to go and hunt. So we went to the instant gratification instead of like the real answer at the end.
Yeah, and perhaps long-term evolutionary, this constant purchase of instant gratification will not play on our side. And I've been hearing this opinion quite a lot from different well-spoken men. Is there even hope for society considering this whole thing, you think?
I think there is hope, but we have to take action. We have to always be pushing ourselves to improve ourselves, to be the best version of ourselves at the end of the day.
Nicely eases us into the first question I'd like to raise with you. What makes a man of great value, in your opinion?
That's a very good question. I think it depends on the man, but I believe men overall, we are designed to be protectors and providers. We are genetically stronger than women. We are made to, like, innately. I just think that if I'm bigger and stronger, then I should protect you. I should take care of you. Even if it's a weaker man, I'm still going to step up and try to help you along the way to make you a better person, because at the end of the day, I want you to help me. You know, in the family unit, I'm going to provide financially. I'm going to provide, food and shelter and all the things that are required. But at the end of the day, I will get a return on my investment through love and support and the other things that I need and the other things that men need. We need to be, I believe that every man needs to be pushed. They need to be heard and they need to be appreciated.
So would you say that's interesting, because what you've been saying makes me think that sometimes when a man seems particularly lost, it makes sense for him to kind of look back at his ancestors and perhaps a bit primitively analyze their life and somehow identify what played the biggest part in their survival, and tend to repeat that, almost fake it. That's what a lot of people seem to be doing with their exercises. When they go to these fancy gyms and they are when I started exercising, I got my little gym here in my house. And before I improved that room, it looked like shit. And then after I got a little bit of renovation in that room, I kind of low-key missed that shitty condition, because I thought, well, I've never been to a real gym. Maybe you're going to disrespect me for that, but I've always exercised, exclusively at home. And I thought, man, maybe those gyms, they shouldn't even be all comfortable and nice looking. Maybe there's got to be like this one room of suffering when nothing is satisfying, with wherever you look kind of makes you, hate yourself. And maybe that's got to be used as a fuel, right?
100%. I use it as fuel all the time. I'll be, my gym is right outside my back door. So I do a lot of work from home. I travel a lot, but I do a lot of work from home. And my gym is like, it's 20 feet away from me. Yeah. And so in between calls, in between, like, I'm working on something, I'll go out and I'll knock out a set, and I'll just suffer, and I'll do something really hard, lift heavy weight or do lightweight for like a lot of reps until I'm like, I'm huffing and I'm puffing and I'm suffering. And then I come in and I do some more work and I go back out. So, I'm preparing to go do the Grand Canyon next week after I finish this call, or, I've got one more call today. I'm going to go run 8 miles just because I need to. because I haven't
Nice.
put in the time on my legs.
Yeah.
I'm a little behind the power curve right now because I have been on the road and I was taking it easy. I was going to the gym, but not putting in the effort that I needed to. So like I said, everything costs something. I'm going to pay when I go to the Grand Canyon, but I have to start paying right now. So I pay a little bit less. Pay me now or pay me later. So I'm going to have to pay myself now, pay. And then so I'm paying less later.
A lot of people don't seem to even be aware of this necessity to perform a sacrifice of some kind. Now, so that brings me to another topic that I've been personally wrestling in my mind a lot. And I've asked a lot of people lately whether they judge other people. Because considering, let's take as an example, somebody who's like you, who seems to be proactive and challenging, and daring, and then somebody who totally trashes this sort of lifestyle. When you run into somebody like that, do you judge this person perhaps silently, maybe not kind of vocally, but do you criticize and judge people who live different lives?
Yes. The short answer is yes, but but I don't, I feel sorry for them. I try to encourage them to create artificial hardships in their life. And some of that is like, do hard things that scare you. I have this, my main keynote when I travel around and I speak, I talk about, you need to get naked. It's 5 secrets to help you think like a Navy SEAL. So naked is an acronym. The N stands for never quit. The A is accept failure. The K is kill mediocrity. E is expose your fears and do the work. D is do the work.
That sounds nice.
So when I talk about that, and I talk about these hardships, number one, you're killing mediocrity in your life. I tell people to compete, and I don't mean go out, like go start, join a professional, team or, something like that. I say, start simple, compete in kindness, compete in generosity, compete in gratitude. And then once you get really good at those things, start competing against your ego, because your ego knows exactly what to tell you to make you mediocre. And then, a lot of people, I've had coaching clients that say, I was afraid to go to the gym for, 15 years. Well, I worked with them to get in the gym. So now they're like, they love going to the gym, but they were afraid to go to the gym. Like, expose that fear, like do the things that scare you. I remember how hard the Grand Canyon was, a few months ago when I did it. I'm scared, but I'm going to go do it anyway. And
remind me the distance, because here I'm from Ukraine. We have different metrics. We've got kilometers here. So what's the daily distance you plan to cover?
54 miles. So I think
is that around 100? It's 86 kilometers. It's nearly 100 kilometers a day.
Yeah.
Right. Wow.
Yeah. In a day.
Bro.
And it's so
I hit on one day 50 kilometers. And I don't know what's 15 miles. Let me tell you, just a real
50 is close to 20 miles, probably 20 miles.
Yeah, that sounds like bullshit, right? Yeah, 31, it says 31. And I covered that on a day, and it took me 10 hours, and my feet all calloused up and bleeding. And I was kind of proud of myself. But then hiking the Grand Canyon that's crazy. And you've done that, you say, before.
I have. And it took us 25 and a half hours last time. I think we'll do it faster this time. We've got less people. We had some slow guys that slowed us down. But the hardest part of the Grand Canyon is hiking out of the Grand Canyon. So the hike out is 9 miles. So about 18 kilometers, roughly, something like that, a little less. And that was the hardest part, because it was at the end. And I felt sorry for myself, and I went to these really dark places. And then one of the things that got me through that is, it was nighttime. It was at the end, and I was watching everybody that was up above me, like 15 guys in front of me, and a few guys behind me were catching up. And the guys that were above me, I could just see their headlamps, their lights on their head. And they were so far away. I was like, how am I ever going to catch up to that? How am I ever going to finish this thing? And eventually I stopped looking up, and I stopped worrying about the guys behind me. And I looked down at the ground. It was nighttime. And my light was about this big. My battery was dying. It was so the light was getting smaller. And all I did was I just looked at that light, and I just made it to the end of that circle. I took the smallest, tiniest step that you could possibly imagine.
Right.
That's and little tiny steps. Like my steps went from big steps to little steps. And I realized, taking those little tiny steps, I actually created more momentum. I was less tired. less effort to create these little tiny steps. And eventually I caught 9 of the guys that were in front of me and passed them. The guys I didn't think I was going to pass. I didn't think I would catch
Was it
them,
in
much
some
less
kind of a
pass them.
competition form or just to
No,
finish?
it was just, you know, the competition is just with yourself.
Yeah, your own.
This competition is just completion.
So you know what I wonder, because I was covering that pacing mileage by my own, without anybody else, and I think I want to ask you: do you think it's more suffering inducing when you're in a company, or is it when you are alone? How would that differ if you were covering it alone?
It's less. I think it's less suffering when you're with it's different. It's different. It's different suffering.
Yeah,
it's not less or more. It's just different.
Yeah, you can't give up. Right?
And, you know, because when you're with someone, when you're with a group of people, you don't want to let them down. So you'll work a little bit harder because you want to make sure that you're not the person holding them back.
And there's also like extra responsibility in their eyes, I believe. Right.
Wow. When you're with yourself, that it's a different suffering, but you're not holding anyone accountable but yourself. You're not trying to improve or push anyone or anything like that. It's a different kind of suffering. It's a different.
I went to a dark place in my mind, to be honest. You know, I regretted a billion times to even haven't started that. And that was interesting. I've started treating my workouts like a long-term investment into my mindset. Whereas before I probably took it as only physical improvement, nothing else. Right now I'm treating it as more, you know, maybe in the future, the kind of mindset that allows me now to go get workout in will hopefully allow me to get some shit done in the future because I've done this today, you know. So that's
when you do really hard things. When you do really hard things on purpose, you're expanding your capacity to do more, to suffer more. When you go through and you put yourself through personal hardship, personal suffering, because you want to, when life hits you in the gut, you're more prepared for that suffering that you're going to experience.
And it almost feels like when life hits you, it almost feels like you have no rights now to give in, because then it would almost feel like all your previous accolades and achievements would have been for nothing. So it's like, it's kind of extra pressure, and some people break. Have you witnessed some people break physically, mentally? How did that happen?
Yeah. I mean, I watched, you know, in these programs, I watched guys quit, but they could keep going. They could totally keep going. I mean, you know, when we hiked the Grand Canyon, it's all, you know, so we had a guy after we hiked the Grand Canyon who wrote a book called The Comfort Crisis. I forgot the guy's name, but one of the things he said to us, he said, fatigue, you know, when you feel tired, fatigue, it's an emotion. And I was like, that's interesting. I never really thought about that. Normally we think about, oh, we're tired. Like our body feels tired. You feel, you know, it's no different than you feel in love. You feel energized. You feel fatigue is an emotion. You feel happy. You feel sad. You feel awake. You feel fatigue. It's an emotion. Yes, it is your body saying it may need a break at some point, but it doesn't need a break right now. It just needs to keep going. You can overcome that feeling. You can overcome that feeling.
I'm sure you're aware of David, and I was going to bring that name a little bit later, but obviously that's what his agenda has been, that we tend to function at our most of 40% maximum, you know. So that's what he seems to be pushing. Considering your military background, have you always been kind of army and military oriented ever since you remember yourself?
Yeah, from like, well, I always knew that I wanted to be part of some small elite military organization. I didn't really know what that was until someone told me what a Navy SEAL was. And I was like, yep, that's what I want to do. And, you know, this was long before the internet was invented. And so I found out about it through a guy who wanted to join the Navy and become a Navy SEAL. And I was like, that sounds cool. I want to do that too. And so that's what I did. So I was always in the Boy Scouts. I wasn't always the man that's talking to you right now. Even while I was in the SEAL teams, I would say I wasn't the man that you're talking to right now. I was less. And so it wasn't until I got out of the SEAL teams and I went through a lot of suffering and a lot of failure in my own life that helped me become the man that I am. And it wasn't through doing easy things. It was through doing hard things. It was through failing and suffering and getting up and never giving up, never quitting.
Yeah, that's. I tend to admit that probably kids these days, on contrary, lean closer towards avoiding some hard paths like that.
Oh,
because
100%.
I imagine I don't even know anybody. Maybe in all my 26 years of life, I must have seen maybe 2 or 3 guys who have always wanted to become people of army, of military. And most of them, it's like, do you sometimes, now you're American, obviously citizen, right? So what about the States? In the States, do you run a lot into people who detract, diminish the importance of service?
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
100%.
Really?
Yeah. They don't see a reason for it. Again, but it's
They
because
criticize it.
they're selfish. They only care about themselves. They don't care about themselves, or they don't care about anyone else or about doing good in the world. They look at, you asked earlier about balance. It's at the end of the day, balance equals 0. And so they only care about 0. They don't care about, they care about being mediocre. They care about being less than what they can be. They care about eating fast food and having an easy life. They don't care about having a hard life and reaping the benefits of doing hard things.
What did the Hell Week do to you?
Hell Week was awesome. I loved Hell Week. I loved it because it was a pinnacle that I was looking forward to for a long time. And one of the things that I found out in Hell Week is how far I can push myself. And I did that by surrounding myself with the right people. So I'm actually rewriting a TED Talk right now that I'm going to give in November about being in the right boat crew. And so a boat crew are the people that you surround yourself with. And to kind of give you a quick story, Hell Week started. I was in a boat crew. A lot of the guys in the boat crew did not want to be there, or they didn't want to like win the races or do the things that was required during Hell Week. And a lot of guys quit. And I was like, I don't want to be surrounded by quitters. I want to be in another boat crew. And I saw one boat crew that was winning. They were winning races from Sunday night through Monday morning, Monday afternoon. And I was like, I want to be in that boat crew. And it was boat crew 3. I was boat crew 4, I think. And then we lost a bunch of people. A bunch of guys quit, and we had to reshuffle the boat crews. And so the way you pick boat crews it's by your height. And so boat crew 1 is the tall guys. Now boat crew 2 is the next tallest. Boat crew 3 is the next, and whatever. And so I was like, I want to be in boat crew 3. So I waited for everyone to line up, and I was the last one to get in line. And I was like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Boat crew 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Boat crew 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll be number 5, 6, 7. Boat crew. I'm in boat crew 3. And what I found when I got in boat crew 3, I thought it was going to be a bunch of superstars, a bunch of just like studs, a bunch of guys that were just like hardcore. And it was none of that. It was just guys that wanted to win. There were no superstars. There was no one that stood out. No one was exceptional in any way. But as a team, we didn't talk about it in the boat crew. We just decided silently to be the winners. We won every single race throughout Hell Week. And no one noticed until the very end, until Thursday night of Hell Week, did the instructors even realize that boat crew 3 was winning everything. Because we would do these races, and we would paddle out, and we would paddle down the beach and then come in on the instructors. And, we would come in and bring our boat up to the beach, and the instructors were like, hey, what boat crew is this? Boat crew 3. And then we did another race. What boat crew is this? Boat crew 3. What boat crew is this? Boat crew 3. It wasn't until like race number 4 or 5 of Thursday night that the instructors were like, who the hell is boat crew 3?
Did they take you down personally at that point, those instructors? Did they actively try to take you down, like psychologically?
No, actually what they did, they were like stoked for us. They were like, you guys rock. You guys are awesome. You guys are winning. Hey, boat crew 1, you're supposed to be winning. Why aren't you beating boat crew 3? And so they were using us to motivate the other guys or demoralize the other guys because we just continued to win. We're not supposed to be the guys winning. We're average Joe. We're the gray man. The instructors didn't notice us until Thursday night, but we were winning everything. We won every single race. We even if it wasn't a race, let's just say we were going from, to go to the chow hall to go eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's a mile run from, you know, one side of the base across the highway to the other side of the base. We might start at the back. It didn't matter if we were the last boat crew starting. Wow. We were the first boat crew when we got there. We would pass every boat crew in that 1 mile to get, you know, to get to the chow hall, and we would always win. And it wasn't me. I got in that boat crew and I felt sorry for myself. And I was like, I can't keep up. My legs hurt. My stomach hurts. I don't know. Maybe I made a mistake. But then I was like, I can't let the rest of the boat crew down. I have to keep going.
Sure.
And every one of the guys in the boat crew, they all felt sorry for themselves at some point, but they also had the same thing. I can't slow down. I have to keep going. I have to keep pushing.
Right. Nice.
So
now, and in between those challenges, in between those ordeals, did you talk to each other? Like, did you kind of pump each other up? You know, elaborate?
No, not at all.
It was just happening naturally, silently.
Let's go. Let's get to the front. Let's pass those guys. Yeah. And then we would pass them. It's, you know, it is funny. There's a saying in Buds that says it's easier to keep up than to catch up. And that's 100% true. You're on a run. You start feeling sorry for yourself. You start falling back. Well, that's that much more effort that you have to put in to get back to the front.
Right.
So we just continued. So it was easier for us to like pass and pass and pass the next group. Like being in the front is always easier than being in the back.
Wow. Yeah. That's a quote right there for sure. Interesting. I'll have to take time to ponder that. Now, once an Navy SEAL, if you don't mind, because I'm aware that it might be, you know, especially perhaps emotional and sensitive topics, would you, if you don't mind, like highlight the most challenging, hardest, you know, thing that befallen you, so to speak, during your experience of being a Navy SEAL? What was particularly challenging to you? On one of your deployments, you know, yeah.
So I think the first thing that was challenging is when I graduated from Buds, from SEAL training, I thought the hard work was done. And so I showed up at the SEAL teams thinking it was going to be easy, and I was wrong. You know, when you get to the SEAL teams, no one cares that you graduated because they've all graduated. They're like, what are you doing for us today? Oh, I have to work really hard today. I have to do more work. I have to work harder today than I did yesterday. So that was the first challenge. Was to get my mind right. The second hardest thing I think was losing men in combat or losing men to suicide. You know, guys would get out and they lost, you know, I felt like, which
there's some crazy statistics.
The third thing that was really hard was, you know, I say that my transition from being in the military to retiring and being in this world of entrepreneurship is the hardest military mission I've ever been on. When I was in the SEAL teams, I had a purpose, I had a mission, and I had a team.
Yes. Yeah.
And when I retired, I lost my purpose, I lost my mission, I lost my team. And so finding that new mission, purpose, and building my new team around me, building my new boat crew around me was and still is the hardest military mission I've ever been on.
Yeah, that's what I asked Mario, because considering his experience, and I directly asked him a question whether he thinks that taking part in civilian life might be strangely more overwhelming.
Yes.
Other than when you serve, because at least I've never served. I guess, unfortunately, for certain reasons, but I imagine if I had to serve at least I'm having a mission, at least I'm having an order, you know, that I've got to implement. And, you know, I noticed from my personal communication with guys around me, I'm not privileged with having a lot of animals. I wish there's arguably maybe one guy that I tend to train with, and he tends to skip some workout. So I kind of confidently lose more and more respect in him and belief in him. But, you know, I'm not surrounded by a lot of people with strong spirits. But I think, you know, people that when people in this civilian condition, the overwhelming number of options, it can be so present to them that they just freeze quite often, and, you know, and they tend to waste their life away. And a lot of men fail at simply performing an order. Don't you think it's like a critically important skill that a man must possess? You know, whatever it is, whether it's a reasonable or unreasonable order, whether somebody tells you probably to go and clean a toilet with a fork, you know, it's stupid and shitty, right? But hey, just for the sake of learning how to obey, you better go and do it to the best of your ability, right?
Right. You go and do stupid things like that, but there's a reason. If you can try to figure out what is the lesson that they're trying to teach me. It's not always about punishment. It's not always about, you know, just following orders. Oftentimes there's a lesson buried in there, and you have to find out what that lesson is.
Right. Now, so let me ask you, it's going to be a problematic question to form, and I'm just wrestling with a bare concept, but where is the fine line between being obedient and being able to perform orders, whichever type of orders, and then being too kind of complacent and just yes sir type of guy? You know what I'm talking about? Because sometimes you got to have your own kind of opinion and vision, right? And
yes.
So yeah, where is that fine line?
That's actually a really good question, and that's one of the things that we talk about during the project is, you know, we'll tell you to do some stupid stuff, and you have to decide whether you're supposed to do that or not. You know, we will give them hard things to do, hard things to think about, and they have to decide whether they're going to do it or not. Now, they're going to pay the man no matter what. But, you know, some of the things we want them to do are to say, no, we're not going to do that.
So that's expected of them, right?
Right. Or, you know, we might say, we're not going to let you like have any water until 3 guys quit. Well, what we really want is for someone to stand up and take charge and say, no, we haven't had water for 2 hours. We're going to hydrate right now. But you got to make that decision. Like,
so
we're going to
every
say
now
no.
and then you have to.
We're going to like, you know, we want men to question authority. And that was one of the great things that about the SEAL teams was we always questioned authority. We would get in trouble sometimes for questioning that authority, but, you know, we encourage free thinking. Like, just because someone says it doesn't mean we need to go do it. You know, we had this global pandemic thing where everyone had to, you know, comply and wear a mask and do all these other things. And I don't know where you stand on it politically or any other way, but pretty much every opportunity I got to say, F you, I'm not doing that. I'm not complying. I'm not getting your shot. I'm not wearing your mask. I'm not going to do the things that you want me to do. You cannot control me. I won and they lost. And that's what we want to teach. Like, think for yourself. Do the things that you know are right. Stand on your own 2 feet. Stop
that was
worrying
my
about what
conclusion
other people
out of that pandemic situation. I'm a pure blood, you know. I ain't got no booster, no nothing in my system. But then it's not like I don't understand the importance of people getting vaccinated. So for me, the most important conclusion that I'm able to draw only now is to have serious reasons to do or not to do. If you base your opinion on somebody else's opinion, I don't know if that's reasonable, but at the same time, you know, there are some people who are smarter and more experienced, so it makes sense to listen to those guys. But yeah, it's just, I only question, I've talked to a lot of people about it, and I've always asked them why you do get it or why you don't get it, you know, and I only care about their reasoning. So that's right. You know, that's what was interesting. Who are your role models?
I have a lot of role models. I have a lot of people I look up to. And I look up to them for different reasons. You know, I pay for coaching. I pay to be in the room with people who are going to make me better. And then when I'm in that room, I decide whether, because now I have access to that person, I get to decide whether I want them to be a role model for me or not. And then I also get to let them decide if they want me to be a role model for them. You know, without naming any names, like you mentioned a guy earlier that, you know, talks about the 40% or whatever. And he says he doesn't have any role models. I'm going to say that's a bunch of bullshit. He absolutely does. He's like, I'm a self-made man. And I'll tell you that he is not a self-made man.
I just talked about this term self-made with Mario. We've mutually agreed there's no such thing as a self-made. You know, we're always surrounded. He went through, you know, the same training that I went through. He talks about boat crews in one of his books. And he says, I don't have role models. I don't have people I look up to. I don't this, I don't that.
Bullshit. You wouldn't be where you are without a whole lot of people,
right? Whether you're aware
being
of that or
around
not,
you,
right? It's
getting
just a
you where
question
you
of-
are today. Now,
Right.
now he does a good job of
Yeah.
like self-promotion and all that other stuff. Good on him. I like a lot of the messaging that he puts out where he motivates people and things like that. But he is not a self-made man. He absolutely has role models, even if they are people that, you know, he talks about people that he hates or people that hate him. And he uses that as fuel. Those are role models. The people that he uses as fuel that like tell him that he sucks or whatever.
Yeah.
Those are role models. Even if they're in a negative fashion and he uses that role model for hate, for fuel, like it's still a role model
in a way, right?
Right.
Okay, well, let me maybe hit you with a rather provocative question. I don't know, you probably are not that into name dropping, but Jocko, what's your stance on Jocko?
I think Jocko's a really smart guy. Super smart guy, very, very talented. I'd like to learn more. I like learning his perspective of things because he has a little bit of a different perspective. We know exactly the same stuff from the SEAL teams, but he brings a little bit of a different perspective. He brings a different perspective. I think he sucks at jiu-jitsu, but
have you trained with him?
I have, and he's beaten me every time I've rolled with him. But I don't think he's that good. I think he's bigger and stronger than me. He has more experience, but he's not that good at jiu-jitsu.
Okay. Would you say perhaps, now again, I don't mean to put you in a tricky position, but not as good as he perhaps claims himself sort of to be, or other people might wrongly assume he is?
I think he knows how good or not good he is. I mean, he's very talented. He's very strong, and he can beat most people.
Right. And
but there are levels. You know, he's a black belt. There are levels. And I've rolled with guys that have less experience than him, not as strong. They beat me just as easily, but they can beat me in 17 different ways. And Jocko would just only beat me in the one way, like same submission every time. I'm like, well, you got anything else, buddy?
Yeah.
What else you got?
You know, I have not done jiu-jitsu, sadly, but Jocko appears to be the kind of bench press type of guy, you know, the gorilla kind of build that's probably really good for bench pressing, you know, some kind of movements like that.
I mean, he is a strong guy. He can move stuff around. He works really hard. He has like amazing work ethic. I just like to bust his balls because I can, because I'm smaller and weaker and not as good. And I'm like, you should be able to beat me 17 different ways. If you can't beat me 17 different ways, then you're not that good.
Right. What's your stance on slipping? That appears to be a controversial topic. How much do we even need with your mindset?
On what now?
Sleeping, because that appears to be a contrivential topic.
Sleep.
Yeah.
Sleep. I think you need as much as you need. It's funny. I was just speaking at an event last week with a guy. He's known as the sleep doctor. And you know, his stance on it is like everyone needs a different amount of sleep, and but you need the amount that you need. But what he said is like, it doesn't matter how much you get, just get this. Like, I don't care when you go to bed, but wake up at the same time every day. That's the best thing that you can do for yourself. You can go to bed at midnight, you can go to bed at 8 o'clock. Get up at the same time every day.
Right.
That's the most healthy thing you can do. And then you know, he talks about sleep hygiene and all this other stuff, but sleep,
Are you talking about Matthew
everybody
Walker,
is.
Perchance?
Who's that?
Matthew Walker? Is that who you're talking, perhaps?
No. His name is Bruce.
Yeah, Matthew seems to be a big guy in this.
Michael Bruce is the guy's name.
Okay. Yeah. Describe your working out routine.
My workout routine. I work out almost every day, not every day. I've got a bunch of injuries because of, you know, I'm pretty beat up from my time in the military. And usually what I will do, I used to lift heavy, bench press, squat, deadlift, cleans, kettlebells, things like that. Because of my injuries, I do almost the same workout all the time because it kicks my ass. It's simple. It kicks my ass and I can do it pretty much anywhere. But in my backyard or in a hotel gym, you know, I take like 35 pounds and I'll put a bench at an incline and I'll knock out 30 presses, and then I'll turn over and I'll do 30 rows where I use the same weight and I pull the weight to my body. and then I'll do 30 squats, and I might do like 30 like kettlebell swings and or dumbbell swings, whatever I have. And I'll do 5 rounds of that. Or I'll do like a round, I'll come in and I'll do some work. I'll go out and do some more. I'll run at least 3 or 4 days a week, 5 miles every time, 5 to 7 miles when I run. I used to run, I thought 3 miles was a long run, like 5 kilometers was a long run for me once upon a time at the beginning of the year. But when I started training for the Grand Canyon, again, I expanded my capacity of what I was comfortable doing. So now my average run is 5 to 7 miles.
Yeah, that's nice. Have you ever been focused on those PRs, like personal records in bench press, for example? I'd be curious to know.
I was, and one of the like using 220 like in pounds. I wanted to do 3 rounds or 3 sets of 225 pounds for 10 reps each. Okay. I got where I was doing 5 sets at 225 at 10 reps each.
Okay. Oh yeah, that's nice. Yeah, but you ain't that big on bench press anymore, right? You said it's not your
right, because it does something to my shoulder that I can still do it.
Yeah.
But then I pay in pain.
Yeah.
That's not necessary. I can get the same volume. I can get the same work using lighter weight with higher reps.
And so I've talked the other day with my coach about that. We were wondering about one and only exercise by which you could absolutely undeniably tell a man's physique if you could select only one exercise, and by the results of an individual in that exercise, you can tell whether he's good or bad. What exercise do you think that would be?
It would be either squats or deadlift.
Yeah, one of those classical ones, right? Like,
yeah. I mean, you could also do maybe like clean and jerk, or clean and press, where it's like a deadlift, but you get it up to here and then you press it over your head.
Okay. Oh yeah, that's a nice exercise. Yeah, you kind of lift it up from the floor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
And then you have to use your body to get it up to here.
Yeah.
And then you press it over your head.
Yeah. You lift it up, and then my coach used to make me do another action as soon as I pressed it. When I was pressing it up, he made me go down and do kind of squat, So as soon as I was going up, Yes. That's such a universal exercise, it activates your whole body. Yeah, what else I've scrambled for myself. So what is, I think we are going to slowly call it a day. Being a Navy SEAL, what is patriotism to you?
Patriotism?
Yes.
I think doing the right thing for the people that are around you. It's not always doing the thing that you're told. It's about doing the right thing for the people that are around you, doing the right thing that is that you believe is the right thing. A lot of people don't think the same as you. But doing the right thing for the right reasons is really what patriotism is all about. And it's not always following orders.
Being a patriot, a Navy SEAL, a man of discipline and order and, let's say, codex, let me put it that way. I can't but ask you about your thoughts of this unprovoked Russian invasion into Ukraine, my country, that is. I'm sure you've thought about that. What are your...
I'm curious about what your thoughts are.
Oh, well, my thoughts are, I wish probably if I announce my thought fully, if my channel grows a little bit bigger, I might get taken down, but I hate Russia with my heart wholeheartedly, truly and totally. I think what they've been doing is unnecessary. It's unprovoked. It's illegal by all means. They've broken every single international agreement to which they themselves agreed. And the reasons that they have constantly, ever since they started this full-fledged invasion, the reasons have been constantly changing. Once in the beginning, they announced one set of reasons. Currently, they're sticking to something else. So yeah, I think it's horrible and undeserved. Yeah, and I regret that I'm not fighting, honestly, and that's actually one of the reasons why me and with my podcast, I've been leaning towards people like yourself and Mario who are military experienced, because, at least I can talk to somebody like that. But man, let me just tell you, maybe I'm going to regret one day, maybe later when I listen to what I'm about to say right now, it will sound rather childish. Honestly, I wish I could take a couple of Russians down. There would be nothing better for me than to just take those motherfuckers who've been killing our men and torturing women and illegally sending children across the border. It's just, but I'm not in a position to perform that. Maybe yet. Yeah.
Yet.
Yeah. Well, maybe
you're not in a position yet.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, so I think we've done nice 50 minutes, roughly around 50 minutes. What is the future for you? Let me close up on this.
The future for me is to continue to help men become men again. It's to, get on stages. It's to help inspire people to be better versions of themselves, and to make the world a better place. Through changing the way that you think, to doing hardships, to creating hardships in your life so that you are prepared for life when it does come in and punch you right in the gut.
Well, the pleasure is mine. Thank you very much for joining me on my podcast, William. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. All right.